one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda. We have a few additions to put on the agenda to amend to this evening. Number 5 in new business. To discuss traffic transfer station, speed at the traffic transfers at the transfer station. And old business, number 3, new Riverside update. And discretionary action on request of appointments for New Hampshire DES appointment. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The public participation policy applies to the selectmen meetings. A copy of this is in the back of each agenda posted in this meeting room and on our website. Public input for the items only for this evening. Anyone like to speak on public input? Seeing no one, we'll go to appointments. We have no appointments this evening, so we'll move right to new business. Could we have the code enforcement officer come up, please? John, we'd like to Board of Selectmen, I'd like to give you the certificate of retirement. We, the Board of Selectmen, so hereby proudly present the certificate of retirement to John Dever III in recognition of the 13 years of dedication for faithful service to the town of Alton. We are all very grateful for your commitment to the town and the contribution you have made over the years to the betterment of the service of our community. We truly hope you enjoy your new chapter in your life and best wishes. John, thank you very much for everything.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, John.
Taking photos.
John, you're also welcome. I know you had said you might, a few things you might want to say, so I just didn't want to take that away if you had anything else.
Okay,
you
no,
wanted to say.
I want to get a picture of us. I know it'll be a challenge, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of selectmen, past and present, who I've had nothing but solid support the entire time I've been here. And of not only the selectmen, but the staff, other department heads, people of the town. And it's made it a very enjoyable place to work. And I've gotten a lot out of it, and I really appreciate the support I've gotten. I feel myself very fortunate to have. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, maybe out here will be better.
Maybe out front of stage.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I'll
In front of the stage.
what's that?
Always the photographer.
Yeah.
Same time.
Thank you.
Okay. Going right to number 2 on beverage wine tobacco license approval, Lake Town LLC.
Mr. Chairman, if I could elaborate on this one just a little bit, if you'll see in your paperwork, there's a note, it says 404 Main Street. When this application first came in, the question was, it said the establishment is located at 222 Rand Hill Road,
Right.
obviously the residential area. We did do some research and called not only the applicant, but the State Liquor Commission to get confirmation. So the 225 Rand Hill Road is the registered address of the LLC. But the storefront location where this license is going to be applied and used is 404 Main Street, which is the Circle Store, the Alton Bay Circle Store. So just to confirm that, so you know that that is the storefront location where this license is to be applied, not at the 225 Rand Hill Road. And the recommendation that I would give the board on this is that if you make a motion to approve this, that we add that language into the approval that said license be used at the 404 Main Street address. Because we did confirm liquor, but they weren't able to send a new, they couldn't edit the application because that is the registered address of the LLC, legal address.
It's a legal address,
for
but
the-
the only place for the tobacco liquor license will be at the 404, and that needs to be clarified on the application.
Yes, or on the vote, I would recommend it be clarified for the town.
Oh, that
vote.
too.
Yeah, so that that's what the approval would be.
So do we have, or do we need replacement comments from the town officials on this? Or do we have them?
We do have most of the town officials, the one that picked up on the address, obviously, first and foremost, was our code enforcement officer, who brought that to light. That
Notes.
prompted us to do the due diligence on the other end and confirm the location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John, for doing that. Clarifying that. All right, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the beer and wine tobacco license approval for Lake Town LLC with a proper address noted of 404 Main Street in Alton.
Okay. Do we want to add anything to that? A condition that it is not permissible on 225 Rand Hill Road? Or is that not necessary?
I don't see that extra language
Okay.
necessary, just as long as we stipulated that it will be for the 404 Main Street.
We have a second?
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, retail tobacco liquor license approval for Winnipesaukee Trading Company LLC. This is located. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's
Go ahead.
okay. I'm sorry. There's no address issues with this. 14 Mount Major is in the pavilion.
So this one's all set too for
Um,
tobacco sales there?
uh,
Along with their liquor, they already have the liquor license and
They
everything?
don't sell liquor there. It's a tobacco shop, the cigar shop.
Okay,
can I just
go liquor
get a
license.
clarification? 14 Mount Major Highway is the pavilion, but the cigar shop is not in the pavilion. It's in the building before the pavilion. Oh, okay, you're right. It is 18 Mount Major Highway. Correct. Thank you. Okay, I was just going to clarify that it was in the shops in the bay, not because you mentioned pavilion. That's
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
But it still says retail tobacco liquor license. Is that, it's just for tobacco? only?
That's just that's why the tobacco's in bold, the retail tobacco.
Okay,
But they only issue one license for that. It's a combination.
And they're
license.
looking just for the tobacco license.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the retail tobacco license for Winnipesaukee Trading Company LLC at the location of 14 Mount Major Highway.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Water Bandstand Committee Thursday afternoon invoice approval. Is
The chairman, I move that we approve the invoice from the Water Bandstand Committee for entertainment to be provided on fifth in the amount of $400.
I'll second.
that. Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion and traffic at the transfer station and the speed of the traffic at the transfer station. If I can elaborate on it a little bit, after going this weekend, I don't know if anyone has gone to the transfer station, there's cones set up and some barricades with asking people to slow down going into the parking lot and around the first building for transfer of materials. It's been noted and said that the traffic's been going through there at high speeds before that was put on. This was to try to slow it down. It slowed it down a little bit, but people are still coming in high speeds and just buzzing right through it, 40, 50 miles an hour through the side is what I'm told. And at one point, the skid steer moving the trash bins, trying to drag them back and getting out of the way. In one portion, he had just dropped off a container, backed up out of the way, car came through and drove right over the forks. So I think it's a concern that maybe we should talk to the police department and maybe come up with someone to maybe be up there, maybe once in a while and on the weekends or something like that to help curb the speed. I don't know, just an idea. I'm open, just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I can definitely facilitate that conversation with the police chief is, I think we need to determine, because there's really no prima facie speed limit in the parking lot there. I don't think it's defined by any of we would have to define it by ordinance, which I think that might be a proper start to define it. I know that there are some speed limits that are dictated in the parking lot, like the Bay Area. So I'll do some little bit of more research and see if that includes all town properties or town, but I think we're gonna have to put some specific language in for this transfer station, just to make sure that there's some sort of enforceability behind it.
Yes.
But it definitely wouldn't hurt in the meantime if, maybe there was a swing through and a drive by during some of the busier days, of the weekends.
And I just, it seems like there's quite the concern with safety. So if not only for employees, for people going in there. So
Yeah, the
it's
general
it's
public.
worth looking into.
I was approached about it too. I'm all for that. Yeah, we should do something for sure. They can't enforce it if there's no ordinance in place. So yeah.
Right, you just gotta make sure, I'm not gonna say that there's absolutely nothing for the trip, but I haven't come across that's not typically something that pops up, but surfaces a lot. It's more of a recent issue, so.
Sure.
Definitely, I'll do some homework on that and talk to the police chief and get something in place, and I'll bring it back to the board.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Old business, short-term rental discussion. You all have,
The booklet should be right here.
Yeah.
On your table, I think.
yep, here it is. Town of Walton, New Hampshire, application for short-term rental permit. Hi, Jessica.
Good evening.
How are you?
We meet again.
And after you.
All right, so what you have before you tonight, sorry to introduce myself, Jessica Call, town planner. So what you have before you tonight, is an amended rental permit application form. The wording in black is what we went over last time. And then everything is red, in red has been added. That was all the stuff we discussed. Some of these things come from the recommendations of town council and further recommendations from our consultant, Tara Bamford. I feel like this is a pretty solid document. I don't know if you guys have any questions on anything or concerns, changes, comments.
I've definitely gone through it and looked
Read
at
it a
it
couple
and,
times. You
and
did really good on it.
it
Looks really
does,
nice.
it does look
Well covered.
a lot better and well covered for the questions that we had and questions that you had and,
Yep.
and everything. I think it covers it quite well.
Did we consider, I think we talked about the last time around, with the agent information, their location that would allow us to verify that they're within the required traveling distance of the property they're representing?
That's in number 15, isn't it?
Yes.
That's on number 15.
Yep. And that language came from town council. So that was changed from the last time.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's why you put it in red.
That's right.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
I don't know exactly where it is. The only other thing that, was there a clarification on what should be used for a fire extinguisher?
No.
What size or what to use?
So when I sat down with Pedro earlier, we were discussing that. That's a number 9. So no, we didn't have a size requirement, and we also don't know anything about inspection requirements,
Mhm.
keeping that up to date.
Right.
So that's a little lacking in that area.
That's a little something that could still be added on and
Right.
mentioned.
Yep.
And I know there was talk about it at one time for a fire extinguisher and the requirements for that.
Yep.
So that would be the only thing that still needs to be just determined or just make sure that there is at least one on each floor or something, or one.
Correct. Right. And then I can confirm whether, how often inspections are required, because I don't know that information. So.
Right.
My recommendation would be to talk to Evan.
Yeah.
Or the fire chief, and find out from their standpoint what they are gonna sort of view this as for fire life safety code.
Right.
To find out if there's a certain class of fire extinguisher and obviously volume or size.
Yep. I do want to note that in number 2, I'd like to change out a word instead of exists. I'd like to replace that with is required.
Sorry, what section was that?
Number 2.
So under G regulations, number 2, the very first sentence. I think it makes more sense.
Other than that, I think it looks pretty good.
Okay.
Requirement, I think I asked about this before, and maybe I missed the explanation, but I think it's there. Item 3, where we have the proof of
Oh, maybe.
Hampshire DES of an approved installed system, and if no system's on record, satisfactory operation by a New Hampshire certified system evaluator, and a current construction approval, which would suggest to me that the homeowner would have to have a completed design and approval from in on the chance that they might someday have to put one in.
Yep, a construction approval, right, to have on file in case the current system fails.
Okay, so anybody that is in this boat is going to have to expend a fair amount of money for a design. And that design expires if you don't put it in within so many years.
Right, I think it's good for
4.
5 years, 4 years.
4, 4, 5, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
4 or 5.
Years.
Significant expense.
Well, it'd be, most people charge usually about $1,800, $2,000 for.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a good. So that people know that if we gotta expand or if their system fails, at least they know, at least we know that what they have to do.
make sure they have enough room for it.
Exactly. Okay.
So there were some questions that I still had, just in sort of brainstorming on how this is all going to be implemented.
Mhm.
So we haven't really talked a whole lot on that. We've just kind of focused a lot on, how is it going to get done? So a couple of things that came up is trying to come up with either some open lines of communication or some type of database that we can categorize all these short-term rentals so that in the time to where, say, if there are 3 violations and there have to do with the noise ordinance,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily going to come to the code official, and it's sort of like a 3 strikes rule. How is the code official going to know that there've been 3 phone calls down to the police station? So there's got to be some sort of
Open line of communication from the police department.
communication or something to be able to, to track that.
Mhm.
If we're going through all these, regulations and trying to put things in place, there's got to be something, I think maybe even between the fire department, it could be a fire code violation or something that they're contacting the fire department about, and then they would need to know whether or not that was a short-term rental.
Right.
Or not.
Police department and the fire department.
Right.
Yes.
So there's that.
Mhm.
And then it would be really handy for us to have some sort of, again, maybe some sort of software program or something that we can plug in these permits so that it comes up and sort of gives us a flag to say, hey, this person's permit is expiring soon.
Mhm.
So that way, can keep on top of, making sure that the permits are current.
Is there a
Right.
program that you could stick in that does all of that, which I don't,
I'm.
like, so if the fire department
They're-
flags that address and it comes up as a short, have a short-term rental, if it flags, so everybody knows, I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah,
Legal or.
I'm sure there's,
So, yeah, it's not gonna be a software that's gonna
Yep.
be, that's gonna do it all together.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and the fire chief will have to correct me on his software, but I know for the police department, if a permit is issued, similar to like a dog license, the IMC program down at the police department, they can plug in the permit information that is identified by address. So in dispatch, if they get addressed to that, it will flag up. Like when they have an alarm permit for the alarm system, it automatically flags up. Same thing, they could enter that data, so it would flag. I'm not sure. I'm assuming the fire software do something similar to that.
Mhm. And that way we can be aware of each and every one, if there was a violation or if there was something.
okay, then we can just inform them when
Mhm.
when permits are issued.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. And then the only 2 other things that I just needed to follow up on was to create the actual permit, which I'm pretty much done with that.
Mhm.
I was hoping to have that done for you guys tonight. And some sort of inspection checklist for code official and fire department so that they're using the same list when they go out.
Okay.
So those are just sort of the 2 other things that, just to wrap things up.
To wrap things up. Sure. And what kind of time frame are you looking for to actually implement the program?
So that's the question of the night, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're already in a season
Yeah.
now where people
Right,
have already, because we went through this through the last election, which was in March. We're now in June, almost in July. So a lot of these properties, I'm sure, have already started their program. So now it's a matter of, once we get everything approved, when do we actually start the process?
right, because there are some, like Richard said just a short while ago, there are some things on here that are costly.
Mhm.
That people might not be, prepared for right off the bat.
Mhm.
But if they have people scheduled, now you're in this conflict. So I guess that's the question. How long do we want to give people to come into compliance?
Well-
Because maybe some people might need to go get,
Well, what I would think it would
septic
have,
design.
it has to be a grace period
Right.
for people to prepare, to get information, to have things looked at and see what they need, what they don't need. So there has to be a implementation of a grace period before this all takes place.
I mean, we're thinking like a January 2024 type
Well,
thing.
that's what I'm kind of wondering,
Twenty twenty-four.
because we're already in, almost in July.
Right.
So,
Be another month before probably everything's
right,
set, right?
This
So-
will be about a 6 month.
yeah, so I'm thinking
Yep.
January 1st.
Right?
And then people now have, time, because a lot of these are seasonal. And they'll have a time period that they can comply. Again, that's a thought of January,
That seems reasonable.
January
Yep,
1st.
I was
And
thinking-
maybe
I
you
was
have
thinking
some
the same
kind of a
thing.
mechanism in a highly unusual situation, the board could grant a waiver. Oh, I can't imagine what that might be.
If that makes sense to you.
Mhm. So they would be applying, so their first permit would be effective as of January.
January 1st.
So
I
if
think
they
that's
came
only
in-
fair.
In the next 6 months, could they get their inspection and their permit done and then they're ready for January?
We probably have.
Like, how is this,
Probably have to give them a
are
little
they
bit.
gonna get like a half
Yeah,
year
give-
permit
give
if
them a
they
little
come
bit
in
of
right
time
away?
in between.
Right.
I'm thinking as to most people, I don't know how many, I've never seen a survey or a document that stated when's the time frame of most of these short-term rentals? Are they year-round or are they seasonal? And from my observation, most of them have been seasonal, but I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, that's a difficult number to come up with.
So I don't know.
Well, once this is in place,
Mhm.
then people could apply at any time. And their 2-year period would begin from when their application was approved till 2 years after. You wouldn't want it from January 1st to January 1st.
Mhm.
Because the poor building inspector would,
Mhm.
our new guy would be
Yeah.
retiring.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what you're saying,
Well, I think
Okay.
if we could make it effective as of January 1st with the understanding that you apply
Mhm.
whenever you have the need. And be aware that it will take 30 days or thereabouts for an approval.
correct? Okay,
Right, and then your permit would start whenever you came in.
Whenever, yeah, kind of like your
Right.
license on your birthday
Exactly.
kind
Yep.
of thing.
Okay,
Mm,
that makes
yep.
sense.
I was just, all I meant by
Mm.
January 1st was that nobody was going to be able to, you wouldn't be able to operate a short-term rental if you didn't have a permit by then.
The existing ones.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I
Yep.
think
that
that's.
still gives them a lot of time.
Mm,
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'd have to do a good job of publicizing it. So
Right, so then the January 1st, 2024 date would be put into H enforcement, so it gives that date. That people need to be permitted by,
Mhm.
all right.
Anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I think that was it.
Okay. I think otherwise this looks good.
Okay, so what do you guys want to do from here? So you want me to? You guys gonna have a public hearing for this, or are you gonna, do you want to, hear it at another meeting?
Maybe one
Do
more
you
meeting
wanna-
on it and public meeting,
Yeah, we could do either or.
or do one.
Either do.
I mean,
Might as well have one more. I mean, it
Meeting.
probably makes more sense to have one more meeting with
That's what I
the
think.
final document, like the permit itself and the
yep,
inspection
like
sheet
the checklist
checklist
and stuff.
stuff. And then then we can make those documents public in enough time so that the very next meeting, we can schedule a public hearing and
I
See if
think
there's
that would,
any-
yeah, I think
That would be
good.
best.
any input on that.
Okay,
One more meeting.
all right. So you guys meet what in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Man, good job. A lot of work.
It's great.
Have a good night.
You too.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you, John.
See you, John.
You guys.
Take care. Good evening.
Okay, solid waste building replacement. Withdrawal of RFP, re-award RFP. Hi, Scott. How are you?
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
So I put together a memo here of just kind of giving a quick summary of the sequence of events that's occurred since you gave the award for the of the RFP for the solid waste centers recycling building replacement. We've gone through a few evolutions and a few hurdles there relative to the construction and then the current selected vendor and their ability to secure engineering sign off by their company. They have been unable to do so absent putting in a foundation basically, or for the ability to affix a building to that foundation versus the slab. So Director Simons and I have discussed it and reviewed that situation, and we've talked to the town administrator as well. He's been in a loop here relative to the different dialogue back and forth. There's been some, trying to compromise and work with us type of situation. It comes down to additional funds that would be required on our part as well, even though the contract is willing to sacrifice a little bit on their end. But ultimately, I think that, our price tag would be growing considerably based upon that. And that we have reached out to a couple local contractors with the same RFP information and obtained two prices. We reached out to at least 3 contractors and received back 2 actual quotes for the building itself. So Director Simons and I would make a recommendation, since we now know that we're going to have winter, now once we cross the threshold here of summer, we know that winter will be fast upon us, and to go without that structure for the winter is going to be quite a issue for the facility. So our recommendation would be to, with no prejudice to the awardee, release them from the award and to move forward with the low bidder for the project, who's indicated that they would be able to start in 2 weeks to get the project rolling. The other contractor as well, both, I feel, are both good contractors, have indicated 2 to 4 weeks. This, we checked with the low bidder and he indicated 2 weeks. So they're both in the same window of being able to get started on the building that way. I did indicate in here in my recommendation also to have the board take into consideration a contingency for the project. Couple different things here is that we had discussed previously when we did the award was to also make some upgrades to the current structure that's there for the recycling building by the means of retrimming and residing for no maintenance type application. We did with these contractors make a change relative to the siding from the hardy board to a vinyl application that way. And also a small shed roof over the doorway and over the propane tanks on the side.
Makes
So that
sense.
would be part of the contingency funds that would be set aside for that purpose, along with the electrical connection, which we would utilize a electrical contractor that we have that's been performing work for the town.
Mhm.
Scott, will this have any effect on the insurance people's payout amount?
No, I spoke with them actually. I haven't provided them yet the quotes, but I did speak with them. They have indicated, what they would in fact pay up to, as you recall. And I have indicated to them that the pay up to amount would be able to be covered by what our new proposals would be. So they seem to be fine with that
Yeah, I would
long
think
as
they
it's
would.
approved. by the board.
Okay. So that part doesn't change as far as Primex is concerned.
No, they would cover everything except for a $5,000 deductible. And then we would be working with FEMA. We've been meeting with them regularly, myself and the town administrator and finance manager, relative to that FEMA reimbursement project. And they will work with us to help support the payment of the $5,000 deductible
Mhm.
that is not covered by Primex.
Okay. And one of the contractors declined.
Yes,
to
and
bid.
only declined for the main purpose of that they had too much work and wouldn't be able to say that they could get in and get the project underway and get it done.
And the
So,
other two local contractors had no issue whatsoever with the foundation.
No.
As
Nope.
which the first contractor, his engineer did not like the foundation, even though it was a 10-inch thick slab.
with rebar, yeah. So that was in fact exactly correct. They were fine with us with a 10-inch slab. We have covered that with the building inspector as well. He was satisfied
Yeah.
that would meet their current code to be able to do that and support that type of a structure. So
Mhm.
and then it would be, of course, fastened correctly to that slab as well with the proper anchors
Mhm.
in order to do that.
I see. Okay. And Ryan Builders, they just didn't put anything in for the electric.
That's correct. Yeah. We had indicated,
I've
I
seen
think,
better estimates, but
what's that?
I've seen better estimates. That one's pretty vague.
Yeah, he basically went through and the sheets thereafter
Mhm.
are in fact just markups.
Yeah.
That were done, of course. Director Simons actually, he kind of kidnapped these people as they entered the facility. So to basically ask them, they'd help them out basically in getting this underway.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, seems like a fortuitous set of circumstances, really.
I know.
It's about the first time in a long time. I can't remember anything coming in second time around cheaper than the first time.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you recall that, and when we put the RFP out, went through a whole month, or close to a month, if I remember right. We had the one price and,
Mhm.
in other circumstances and other times, I think you would, try to go out again.
Mhm.
The issue that we continue to have is that sometimes we have to go out and,
Yeah.
I don't mean to use the word, it's not, kidnap people, but we kind of have to work with them to bring them in and.
I'm glad we can get somebody local
Right.
and we get
Oh,
local. I'm
exactly.
glad to see local contractors bidding on it.
Yeah, and I did indicate, no prejudice to
Mhm.
the folks there that bid. It's just that, some of the larger companies are more constrained and have different standards in which
Mhm.
they have to operate under for one reason or another. Maybe it's insurance purposes or otherwise. And so, they have to have somebody sign off and stamp, the types of drawings that they may have. Of course, any builder, as you guys all know from probably being involved in the trades, of course, is that, trusses end up having to be stamped and those types of things in order to
Right.
satisfy the building department. So I think, what's spec'd out here is certainly gonna meet the needs.
Good.
So we need two motions, one to rescind the existing contract and a second one to place a new contract.
Yeah, we can combine it into one motion, but it's a big motion. So if you want to break it up, that's fine too. We actually have to, there's a third component to it, because if the board's wishes are to go with Public Works Director's recommendation, also add in language that the board is going to be waiving the bid process because it is over the $30,000. Because the board would be waiving going back out for RFP, which, as Scott had just stated, we did it once already and we only got one bid.
Mhm.
Right. And the quotes that we have now is only because we've pressed upon local people to try to help out the town to get this done.
Sure, yeah, get it rolling. So do we have a motion, or did you want to make a motion, Richard, or?
I don't know if I get enough breath to. We can give it a try. Mr. Chairman, I move that we move to rescind the existing contract. Triple Construction LLC of Hudson, without prejudice due to our inability to reach agreement on the engineering requirements, and place a replacement contract with Matthew Ryan Builders of Alton in the amount of $72,000 with an additional $20,000 for contingency. Will we need further additional funds for electrical or will we be covered?
No, that would be all inclusive.
That would cover it. Okay.
25%. And there was a third part to that motion. To waive the bidding process.
Oh, in honor of Mr. Holt.
Yes. Yes.
And to waive the three bid process, although I really believe it, technically you could say we met it. We got three bids. One of them proved to be unperformable because of engineering considerations.
Okay. We have a second.
I second that. That was good.
Any further discussion? That was very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Scott will be very happy up there. He's-
Yes, I'm sure he is. And will be.
Even happier in December.
Yeah, get this thing rolling. And then really have to deal with traffic. Oh.
Yeah,
Say
and,
that.
and maybe I didn't come up to speak during the traffic situation, which I'm sure some of you saw my post on Facebook for asking the public to help us out here, certainly. I did talk with Scott a little bit about it. And, he had indicated in the past that they had used, speed bumps. They're seasonal stake, basically drive spikes into the pavement and put them out there. The difficulty he and I talked about is with those is that as people drive in with dump trucks and demo and that type of thing there, it litters the driveway with nails and
Mhm.
other small debris, which then cause havoc with the other motorists that come through. So he is held back and actually putting those out because of that purpose. So, we will continue to look at what we need to do to try to help traffic calm up there. Understanding that we have a mixed client base, both the young and the elder. As my dad says, the mature folks that would use the facility, and in that situation there, we want to try to keep the traffic pattern somewhat understandable so that it doesn't become more confusing for people and that we have more issues of safety. So, we'll try to do what we can there to help out. I kind of, Scott said it's always been, the summer upkick that usually causes this flare up. And
Mhm.
so that's
Sure.
why they went with the new traffic pattern there to try to calm people as they enter
Mhm.
that way. We'll try to get him maybe some more colorful cones to help him out with
There you
that.
I think an officer will change that, won't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
you hate to
Once
think that
in
you
a
have to
while.
expend your town funds on having a police officer sit up there and navigate the solid waste facility when
Mhm.
they could
Much
be
easier
on
than somebody
But it's also a thought of just an
other roads.
appearance
Oh, sure.
once or twice a weekend for half an hour, 45 minutes
Yeah.
might make people think a little bit.
Yeah, and it is difficult. I mean, another enforcement action that's been discussed was that, whether or not in the ordinance, the board has the authority, which in most towns under their solid waste ordinance, there is a provision to in fact, ban and or sanction people from or take away privilege for a period of time. I know in the previous community I served in, we did that for violations, but you have to have a solid waste disposal ordinance that speaks to what those rules are, just similar to what the town administrator mentioned about the enforcement and having it in an ordinance in order to take action. So we can relook at that as well.
Yeah.
So, and grab a plate number if somebody
Sure.
is being reckless that way.
Thank you.
But
All right, thank you.
We don't currently have any cameras up there, do we? At the transfer station?
I don't think so.
would
I
have
don't
to-
think so.
I think there might be, I think there's some in the office.
Just in the office.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's much coverage out in the
Well,
open
we're putting up a $70-something thousand building. Why don't we put in some sort of cameras out front that would kind of, be able to see who's coming in flying? You know what I mean? Well, that instance with the forks, we'd be able to see it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Just something to consider, Scott, going forward. Maybe we should look at putting something up for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have the building's gonna be open. Now would be the time to have, Brooks or whoever's
Add
gonna
the
do the
extra-
wiring, put the wiring in.
Yeah.
Well, it's going in. Just a suggestion, just a thought.
it's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Might as well stay right there. You want to talk about the new Riverside?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, this is an old business, New Riverside, just an update and where we're at with the New Riverside.
Sure. So as you recall, I think the last time we were here, kind of went over what the design was going to be and kind of finalizing that with the engineer, which then evolved into discussions that we had just before budget at the 11th hour,
Mhm.
so to speak, to put together set some funds aside or start building some funds for that project itself. And I think the warrant article this past year was for $75,000 to go into a capital reserve fund for this purpose. The engineer had in fact given prices relative to the project. And, if in fact it was contracted out solely, it would be in the area of $400,000. If I have my sheet right here, I think, yes, 400. If in fact there is some ability which I had indicated that if the Public Works Department was involved in different phases of this project, that we could do it considerably less in order to do that. So I had estimated that we could probably do what we call a phase one, which would be grading the site based upon the layout, looking and taking care of the drainage, and then looking to once the roads are designated, then starting to lay out loam into those areas so we could look to establish, grass growth and those things. And then look at the relocation of the columbarium, which could be part of phase one. So I estimated that cost of phase one was going to be somewhere in the area of close to $100,000 in order to make that happen. And then that's the reason how we came up with the number there to get things started at 75. And I think we had some intentions that maybe we might be able to initiate some of that work in 2023 with the select board having the authority to expend. I don't have as high of hopes of that for this year, only for the mere fact is what we're saddled with the storm that happened in late December, and Mother Nature and has not been a very nice person to us overall, probably to everybody that's in and working in the outdoors. This year, overall, we've lost a fair amount of work in time, what we would be able to work on projects based upon some of our repairs that we've done for those storms. And we still have considerable more. Our meeting today with FEMA, I indicated that, you know, we've only got a small percentage of the what we call category C work, which is the road work to be done of the gravel and paved roads. And so that's a fair amount. We've taken care of what we call category A work, which is all the debris cleanup and such, other than catch basin cleanings that will be covered under that. So right now I'm about 4 to 6 weeks behind in schedule. Phones ringing off the hook, wanting to know why roads haven't been graded and why plow damage hasn't been cleaned up, and considerable amount of frustration that people have. They don't understand that we can't grade roads in rain and thunder showers and that kind of stuff. So, but on the project itself, I think that the Public Works is, if we can set aside time in order to do it with a rental of a bulldozer, we'll probably be able to do a pretty good stretch of work there.
Okay. What, you've
That forward.
in 2024, you're talking?
Yeah, I would, that's what I've kind of pushed it that way.
Okay.
Right now, I think that another warrant article to put additional funds in there to at least cover all of phase 1 and then put money towards phase 2. Phase 2 would have the paving of the roadways, finalization of the columbarium and landscaping around the columbarium itself. And doing that, there is a chunk of money that is in there that I haven't quite decided, or I haven't really figured out. It's a dollar amount that's in there to construct a new wall out in front. And I was a little sticker shocked by it, but once again, I'm a little bit old school and, you know, build things with excavators and talent that I have aboard versus contracting something like that out and constructing a wall out front. But we of course the idea was to keep it aesthetically looking like the other wall. So we may end up having to figure that piece out. That would be another phase, to either additional phase or make it part of phase 2. So I think it's, you know, you're going to be looking at making another contribution, and then however long you want to stretch this out. We're not crammed for time, but I think we're crammed for the appearance.
Well, the appearance, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, is the appearance and what you were just describing as phase 1, and being able to implement phase 1 as soon as we can figure out, you know, the logistics of all that. All the loam that's there now was originally scraped from that lot, correct?
So the loam that was there and screened, that we screened last year, that loam was from that site and also from Jones Field and also from the highway garage and from the highway pit. So the reason why it was all screened at that location was because the screener that we rented was a 5th wheel pin screener. And we did not have a way to move it from site to site. Never mind, you lose a little bit of that efficiency. We were able to haul it in. So it is all stockpiled there at the facility.
Right.
I don't believe that all of it will, of course, won't need to be used, because our total yardage, based upon the calculations that was put together by the engineer here, you know, we far exceed that as far as the amount of material that's there now. We have used a little bit of that at the Bay project. We did use a little bit of that loom to do that. We continue to use loom out of there for burials. As we do burials, full burials, then we utilize that loom to top all the new grave sites and reseed them on that. So,
Very good. Well, thank you. Just,
yeah, I wish I had better news because I agree. I did have a writing, which a letter that was sent. I think folks got a copy of it as well, of some concern and disappointment relative to how it looks around the columbarium. The staff has gone out and done some additional work there. And we'll do best, we can. Good part is we have good staff there and, we'll continue to tackle that. And there's no doubt that's a high priority for us. I have to take care of the roads first and then,
that's understood.
as we can. That
Mother
is a
Nature
project.
hasn't been cooperating either.
Yeah, that is a project on our list. That way it's of a larger sense, but
One thing at a time, right?
Yep. Thank you very much for the update.
yeah, I hope
Thank
that answers any
Yes.
questions and, feel free if there's anything else comes up on that. I think, the chairman's aware, but, we did plant the donated tree, that was approved by the board
saw
at
that.
Jenny Douglas Park.
Mhm.
That has been planted there, and I understand that the garden club is, continuing to water it, as they are with the other plantings they've put down there. So that has been, taken care of.
Good.
On that side. So.
Thank you, Scott.
Very much.
Selectmen reports. Richard.
The budget committee has not met as yet, and they aren't due to until we get into the joy of the budget season. And hazardous waste committee met about a week ago, and I also was fortunate to attend the most recent hazardous waste collection function in Wolfboro, which I thought was very impressive, super organized, and I think that Sarah Silk, who I only made her acquaintance recently, is just a remarkable person, the way she tackles this stuff. She has it well under control, and she has the interests of the environment and the public at heart. And we are lucky to have her.
Thank you. Nick.
Planning board meeting went well. Alton Old Home Week Committee they're getting excited. It's getting close. So we have another couple meetings coming up. So that's looking good too.
All right, good.
I have nothing at this time.
I don't have anything at this time. The ZBA will be meeting not this coming Thursday, but next Thursday. That's it. And administrator.
I only have a couple things for you. First of all, what was that?
We've heard that.
So the first one is going to be the discussion of the welcome to Alton sign that we all heard about going into voting in March has surfaced again. I had some conversations with the ABA and in particular there was some email correspondence from the beautification committee. So they still would like to pursue. They still would like to pursue the idea of the welcome to Alton sign in the traffic circle. One of the main discussions I think most of you were aware of was the contingency was between the pros and cons was that a lot of the public felt that it should be funded through donations or business donations, things of that nature. So they have taken that feedback and run with it. And that is their intention, is to fund, to come up with the designs, bring it to the board with donated funds for the sign, for ultimately the possibility of accepting the donation of the sign as presented at that time. Obviously, I know there was a question of what the sign would actually look like and entail. So at this point, the reason I'm bringing it up is before we can get to the stage of a donation or of the sign and looking at that, the issue is the location is in the traffic circle. So DOT is going to require, there was already conversations last year. I know Scott was part of those conversations with DOT, is that we have to engage in a encroachment agreement with the town, with the state, because the state won't engage in that sort of agreement with anybody other than the town. They're not going to engage with a volunteer organization or anything like that. So I guess the only thing that I would need to get for consensus from the board is that is the board interested in engaging in that agreement with DOT? That would not bind us for anything to do with the sign. That would just get it to a point where we know we have the location and the donations could be obtained with the plans for a sign designed, detailed, and then all brought back to the board for a final decision at that point on whether we accept it, we move forward with it or not. Any questions on that?
I
Don't
would
seem to
have,
be any downside to it.
No, I mean, there's no obligation at that point. We're the towns, basically, the only thing we would be saying at this point in time is that we're willing to engage in that
With the
agreement
state.
with DOT.
Mhm.
For the use of the property, should the board decide to move forward with the project at a later
I don't see
date,
any
when
problem with that.
when you have more
there's no
information.
problem with that.
Okay. All right, so
I
I
don't
will
think-
take it if
No.
you guys are good. The consensus is we'll go ahead and back that. So what we'll do from here is I'll work with the Public Works Director and the people that are running it from the ABA organization and things of that nature to coordinate that agreement with Division 3. And then once we get further, obviously all that information will be brought back to the board for further discussion, further decisions at that point.
Do they, is there any kind of concern by DOT, you think, for visibility or traffic or distraction or anything like that? Was there anything like that ever said?
No, actually, the indication I got, and I am gonna look at Scott just for a second in case he saw something, anything. But my understanding of it is they were very supportive of it. They even had offered to bring in some film material and raise the area to some degree. But there wasn't any real concerns that I had heard. Well, there might be more to
Yeah, I'm
that.
just asking if they,
This, preliminarily, when we met with DOT, that was the site, Alan Hanscom was the district engineer. And he was very supportive, the location being across from McDonald's in that area, or actually more towards, I'm not sure what the house is there, that's right there. But in that vicinity there was where they had looked at as a old site. Town administrator's right, that state was supportive as far as putting fill in there but they hadn't actually designed a sign yet. And so the ABA, through a volunteer effort, does have a design now. And I just shared that with DOT because we hadn't been there because nothing had been,
right.
nothing had been looked at. And then after the town meeting, of course, or election. So they have a new district engineer there now, Nancy Spalding. And she has just seen this for the first time. She's indicated she'd like to have some input and dialogue relative to the sign and its size, just to make sure that it doesn't do those types of things such as distraction, being too large, those types of things there. So if it was going to be something that the board was going to engage in now with this type of permission, then I'll try to get all parties together so we can try to come to, if there's a consensus about that and about the design and any modification. So that's where it's at.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the added info.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. So the next thing I have for you, and my final thing is so on the table when you came out today, there was a initial site assessment of Herd Hill Road, the solid waste center, done by Kearsarge Energy. This is a company that Scott had made contact with. I had also heard from other municipalities that have worked with the company, positive things in regards to their solar projects. When Scott reached out, they had gone out and done an initial assessment. This document you have in front of you is from their initial assessment. To see if basically we're at a position where the site was suitable to move forward in the planning process, to actually move to the next step, which would be an actual pre-application phase. And if you see halfway down that front page, as it's the paragraph starts as the next step, Kearsarge would value feedback from the town on this assessment pending feedback from the town. Kearsarge would like to proceed with a pre-application phase. Then it lists out what is included in that. The solar engineering, utility engagement, economic benefits. And those are the key aspects of the pre-application phase. Also, one of the important aspects of that is this is just part of the process that I'm bringing to the board now to see whether or not you want to move forward with this process. At this point in time, there's no financial commitment. And there's no commitment as far as an agreement or anything at this point. It's just the support, obviously at the board to further study the possibility of a solar project up at Herd Hill. In the past, we have explored it once before. My understanding, and I will not speak to the intricacies of the project because I'm not familiar with it. But I do know that this proposal is of a different nature than what was explored before. It unfortunately didn't work the last time around, but I still think that the town itself and the board should support renewable energy and a possible solar project if it's possible, especially on a site like this that can't really be used for anything else.
We're not at any commitment to push forward to get these, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, this
This
is
is
not.
more of an assessment
Yeah,
and
so
and
it's-
to look at the property, if it even worked for them.
And
Is
Scott,
Correct.
No.
Scott Kinmond and Simons and everybody's on board with it, right? Everybody wants to
Yes.
forward,
Yeah,
yeah?
we've all been in the loop. Scott's been leading the charge. As far as arranging everything and moving forward, this is just the next step in the study to build the information. But obviously, you like any other project, if you don't have initial support or consensus, really not a lot of, there's really no reason to put a lot of manpower and effort and resources into moving forward if nobody's, if we're not all on the same page, working for a collective, resolution, positive resolution. So, and then obviously if the board has any more questions, you would like some more information. Obviously, Scott is more familiar with this, but we also have a representative of Kearsarge Energy in the audience right now. If the board has any specific questions that they would like to ask as well.
Scott, if you don't mind. You've met with them and spoke with them.
Yeah, so I first came to learn about Kearsarge Energy at the New Hampshire Public Works Association. We had our annual meeting, and they actually did a presentation at that meeting for us. They're involved in, as the town administrator mentioned, other municipalities that they're doing projects with, both municipalities and school districts alike. And one of the different things is they have different programs that they work with, and certainly Malcolm's here. He can speak to it if you have further questions about it. But, the arrangement is made with the municipality relative to, whether it's a combination of a lease with the property as far as the square footage of property that's utilized, and or also with the power aspect of things. So it can be a blended type application, or it can be a straight lease of property for the purposes of that generation. So the town gets the lease monies in order to do that. It's the equipment of Kearsarge that's there, and they take it and maintain it that way. But certainly Malcolm's here. He can certainly answer any of those particular questions relative to it. There's no doubt, as you recall in the previous one, I think there was some concerns relative to a multi-year, if I remember right, and I think Paul, you were on.
I was here.
Then that it was a multi-year type of an agreement that was at a fixed lease type of application. And I think the board was a little bit uncomfortable. At least the impression I got from being in the audience was they were uncomfortable with, how that all, how.
What happens when
how
the
it
lease
happens
was
when-
up and that type
Exactly,
of thing.
and
And who
how
was
the town
responsible
benefits.
for it after the lease and that type. So there was
Yeah, so I think
some
those were,
issues there.
those were some of the issues, and I kind of conveyed a little bit of that to Malcolm by email. there, that was, certainly I think the board was supportive of renewable energy aspects of things and utilizing the property that way. And I think there was some other answers that hadn't been, made as to whether or not it could be in fact put on the site because it's a, capped landfill and those types of things there. I think a lot, the time that's gone by over the last few years, there's been a lot of information, and DES has been very good with working with this process of renewable energy on capped landfills. So
Well, the questions the board had before, like Paul had said, will those be answered in this proposal that he puts forward?
I believe when Malcolm, he'll put together that. Malcolm is here.
You come right up. Come on up, introduce yourself, please.
Greetings. My name is Malcolm Bliss, Kearsarge Energy, Senior Director for Energy Markets. To the question of whether those questions will be addressed, there's a lot of questions and we have a number of steps to go. But at the time of proposal, the comprehensive proposal will be provided outlining specific benefits to the town. And those will be provided according to your direction for lease payment versus cost savings on energy or a combination of both. That's all good. Win-win in any case, and make it win-win similarly to the point of decommissioning at the end of life for the facility. That will, of course, also be addressed. And I can assure you that there's a reserve fund created as a part of the project to ensure the funding and financing for the decommissioning. So that will be involved in the proposal. We do have a few steps to go that way before we get there. One is confirming the information in the utility database is correct as we've seen it. Engineering work and as identified in the initial analysis that Ryan shared. But I hope that answers the question. Let me know.
All right, well, no, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. You could probably sat down this time.
So you just needed a general consensus to.
Yeah, I think it was, we just need a consensus from the board if you're willing and want to proceed with the pre-application phase.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Is this? All right,
Good.
so the consensus is that we will move forward with the
Yes.
pre-application.
Okay. Okay,
And that's all I had.
okay.
You just to clarify on this thing and just make sure, we're talking about the future vault and everything else. I just want to make sure we're completely clear that at the end of this, we want to make sure that it's, in benefit of the town. Okay.
Well, yeah, that will.
You know what I mean? That's like
That will
it's
be,
just a
yeah.
big concern I have there.
Yeah.
That's all.
And here's what typically you would see, subject to further qualification of the site. There are steps to go before we get that far. But these are very beneficial projects for the municipalities that engage in them. Scott mentioned the facility on the Dunbarton landfill in Manchester. That's been in operation for a little over a year. It's already netted City of Manchester tens of thousands of dollars in benefit. Kearsarge Jones operates, maintains the facility, so it's low hassle, turnkey kind of setup. Kind of throws off economic benefit thanks to the sun and solar technology. That will be outlined clearly in the proposal. And if at any point in time, any questions or needs arise and hey, we want to look at it this way, look at it that way, that's what we're in. Want to make sure you're comfortable with it. We do a lot of work with municipalities, so we will make you a satisfied partner of Kearsarge also.
Do you have any municipalities that you've worked with that have had units or whatever you put up there decommissioned that have been satisfied with the work after it's all been done?
There are none of the projects yet that have reached the decommissioning phase. Kearsarge was founded in 2009. Facilities have a economic life of 25 years. But everybody we work with has a decommissioning program with a decommissioning reserve. We want to make sure that's to your satisfaction.
Right.
Okay.
And you'll be back to us with the full proposal anyway, and exactly what would be beneficial to the town and what that timeline would be.
We will do that. We have a couple of milestones before we get to that proposal. Confirming the database information from the utility and all that. any step of the way, we can get tripped up. So we have a lottery ticket that we think looks like it's win-win-win for everybody. We do have some ways to go until we get to a payoff on that, but it's worth, at least this point in time, to say, hey, let's proceed to the next step. And
Okay.
we can get green lights to go all the way there, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you good?
Yeah.
Approval of the minutes. May 2nd, 2023. Which was the work session minutes.
Just for May, so, okay, so I make a motion, we approve the May 2nd, 2023 minutes.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, May 9th. Public session.
Make a motion that we approve the May 9th, 2023 minutes.
Second.
You just want me to
All
keep
in
going?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, May 9th, non-public session.
I make a motion that we approve the May 9th, 2023 non-public session minutes.
We need to include the requirements about what's revealed and what's not revealed.
So right now, currently, they are sealed. We sealed everything after the meeting. We would, as part of this motion, move to unseal anything that can be revealed at this point in time. My recommendations on the May 9th one is that items 1 and 2 remain sealed.
So to amend my May 9th, all right, let me start again. I make a motion to approve the May 9th, 2023 minutes and release.
No,
Just keep.
no.
So what are you saying? Just 1 and 2 keep sealed?
Yeah, they are sealed currently. So if we just make
Leave them.
a motion to approve them, they remain sealed.
Okay, so the original one stands, the May 9th, 2023 non-public minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May 23rd, public session.
I make a motion that we approve the May 23rd, 2023 public session minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We work well together.
We do. I like this. I make a motion that we approve the May 23rd, 2023 non-public session minutes.
My recommendation as part of that motion would be to release number 4.
Mhm.
Number 1, number 4
Number 4 and number 1.
and 5.
1, 4, and 5. All right, so I make a motion to approve the May 23rd, 2023 non-public minutes, releasing
1.
1, 4, and 5 to the public.
We have a second.
Wait a minute. You look like you got a concern there. Is that okay? All right. Just making sure.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And last, June 5th, 2023, non-public.
So my recommendation would be to release number 2.
2.
And
Just number 2,
number 2 and number 4.
not 3?
The 3 still ongoing.
Okay.
Okay. So I make a motion that we approve the June 5th, 2023 non-public session minutes and release 2 and 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consent agenda approval.
Nice and short. The chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda for June 27th, 2023 as presented.
I second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Discretionary action on request of appointments. We have one for New Hampshire DES appointment.
Just, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, this was, I apologize, this was a late arrival, but given the nature of it, this is for New Hampshire DES. Would like to present to the board in regards to information of the Sunset Lake Dam reconstruction project in 2024. given the nature of the project, and they've already started making plans to meet with the butters and to discuss the project in length. I didn't want to hold this back another 2 weeks. So so with the board's, approval, they'd like to meet at our next meeting. And
And
You know-
you need a vote, not a consensus.
yes, please.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the appointment for New Hampshire DES at the next meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any public input?
Well, I'd like to address you. Name's Bill O'Brien. We've been through this before, 117 Mount Major Highway. When we started this, Paul, 3 years ago,
Mhm.
we saw what was happening. You're the only one that was here. The rest of these haven't seen what we've gone through this past 3 years. When we took that vote in March, I thought we were all in the favor of getting these rules passed. This will be 4 years. We're having problems already, Paul. It has already started.
Mhm.
It is 3 times this past weekend that I've had problems. I'm seeing people that are just disrespecting my property
Mhm.
with signs all over the place. I almost got rear-ended the other day pulling in my driveway because they're blocking the driveway. Paul, I mean, I have reached the point of, and
Mhm.
I've only built this house and sold everything I had to build it. I'm almost at the point of selling. I mean, it's just, it's all around me. It's not just a problem in front of me. I'm seeing things that I haven't seen before. I'm seeing dead chipmunks in my yard, and I have a pesticide license, that these things are vomiting blood and they're dead. I can show you pictures of eagles in my tree. And if those eagles eat these chipmunks, they will become sick, if not die. I don't know what the law is in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
If you're gonna kill an animal, shoot it, kill it. But when you're poisoning it and it's leaving the poison and it's going other places, other animals are gonna ingest that poison. We've got baby fox that live in that camp beside of us. They'll pick that up and ingest it. The eagle will pick it up. It's just that I think what we started, Paul, was
Mhm.
you said that we were gonna try to make Walton Bay a community. I've talked to people that said 2/3 of the residents or the residential houses in Walton Bay are becoming Airbnbs. To me, that's not a community. And the reason you don't have a lot of people coming to these meetings is they don't trust the council. And they told me that when I first started. They said, you're wasting your time. They have a different agenda and they're gonna stick to it no matter what you say. That's all I want to say. I didn't think it would take 4 years to reach this point of, it's something this simple as passing a rule that they should follow.
Mhm.
And you can't say anything to the people that are up here renting it because they don't care. They just don't care. We had our guest this weekend, and at 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, there was a guy standing in the driveway crowing like a rooster, waking up the house next door to me because these two houses were related to each other. So that takes away me, who's a resident of Walton Bay, and helps the community by helping other people in the community. Doesn't do me any good. So I just wanted to express my feeling for it. And I really feel we've been let down after 4 years. We go through another summer. The summer is the worst time for it.
Mhm.
In January, Paul, there's no one here. I could walk naked down the street and didn't know it nuts, but there'd be no one here. So that's just what I want to say to the council. So thank you for
Thank you.
hearing me out.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Lauren Carr. Sound system has gotten worse than it was before. I guess it's because we're down to 1 speaker now instead of 2. But that's okay. About the sign, from what I could hear, is it going to be the business excuse me, Business Association again asking for the town to supply funds for that project they want to do again.
If you mind.
That's not the way I understand it.
Yeah,
Go
if you
ahead.
don't mind,
That's-
I'll
go ahead.
I
That's
just
not-
quickly address that because I did have a conversation with town council today about that. No, the entire intent of it, based on the discussions was that it will be completely and entirely funded through donations. Should the board choose to accept those donations, but there will be no town funds put towards the project because as you know, the warrant article failed.
Yeah.
So there will
okay.
be no funding.
I thought that maybe they're gonna try again. Okay.
No.
Okay. So is, I guess that was my number one question, although I think it is a good idea. I have a relative that lives in France and I toured around France and they have they don't call them traffic circles, they call them roundabouts and they're smaller. And they used to have, every little town would have like a little display in the middle of the roundabout, like by the D-Day beaches, they have statues of Eisenhower and different statues like that, and other parts of it in the wine country that have oversized presses, wine presses and things like that. So it adds character to the area. So overall, I think the idea of the sign would be nice in the town. So I think it would help, give us a little ambulance. So
Thank you.
maybe we could get a speaker out of an old IKEA and put it up so we could hear, maybe
So the
be a junk car somewhere. We could.
the second speaker's right there on that,
Little squeaky.
on the table.
thing. Yeah.
But the new audio system is currently on order and shall be arriving very shortly.
The acoustics in this room, absolutely horrible. So it's very hard to hear back there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. I make a motion to enter into a non-public meeting per RSA 91-A:3, under A.
I second that motion.
I don't,
No, we have
Paul.
roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
7:27.
Thank you, Scott.